Let's run the fucking ball. Why didn't you just take a fucking knee?
Says up on Pornhub. Sorry for your weird masturbation session.
Wow. What a week one of football, everybody. Welcome to the Sideline Study Minicast. I'm Coop here. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for joining me for the Sideline Study Minicast. I just got finished watching the Sunday night football game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Rams. Wow, it just gotta say right there, there was an interference call that was made on Michael Gallup, of the wide receiver of the Dallas Cowboys, and with Jalen Ramsey, he completely sold an offensive interference call, which cost the Cowboys the game, basically. So, if you looked at the replay, it looked like Jalen Ramsey sold this offensive this offensive interference. So, Dallas Cowboys losing to the Rams, just a couple of plays away. And Michael Gallup caught a ball, and he was they were really close to the end zone and everything like that. So, oh man, I'm just so glad football's back. But thank you everybody for joining here. Before I go further, I want to make sure that everybody to go subscribe to the Cold Bone Joe's YouTube channel to make sure you join us for the Sideline Study on Tuesday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also purchase Sideline Study merch at teespring.com/sideline-study. That means you got to put the dash in between the sideline and the study there. I guess it's a Teespring thing. But remember, it's teespring.com/sideline-study. If you'd like to show me support, you can do so by becoming a Patreon member today at patreon.com/CoopTheComedian. And you can also make purchases for t-shirts at my store at belowthecollar.com/CoopTheComedian. You can also go support my animation series that just came out called In Animation. It's on the Hey You Productions YouTube channel. All you have to do is just type in Hey You Productions and you'll be able to find all the stuff there. Go make sure you go support there as well. We have a lot of news to get into when it comes to the NFL, so I will get right into it with all the games that have happened. We'll start off with my Seattle Seahawks versus the Atlanta Falcons. They just Seattle completely pulverized Atlanta in this game. Check this out. Russell Wilson, 31 for 35 in completion attempts, 322 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. One of the leading rushers, Russell Wilson, actually had 3 carries for 29 yards. Carlos Hyde actually was the leading carrier for the Seattle Seahawks. Carlos Hyde, 7 carries, 23 yards, and 1 touchdown. Chris Carson was behind him with 6 carries for 21 yards. And then for receiving yards, check this out. Chris Carson actually got 6 receiving yards for 45 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the running back gets the receiving touchdowns instead of the running back touchdowns. DJ Metcalf came in with 4 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Lockett with 8 receptions for 92 yards. No touchdowns for him. Greg Olsen, the tight end, had 4 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown himself. Greg Olsen, the legend, can still do it. Let's check out the Falcons. The Falcons stats here. Matt Ryan went 37 for 54 in completion attempts, 450 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That is a lot. I did not expect that Matt Ryan would be putting up the throwing yards like crazy in that one. 450 yards. For rushing yards, Todd Gurley had 14 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. In the receiving category, Julio Jones had 9 receptions for 157 yards. Julio, the legend himself, can still do it. Following behind him was Calvin Ridley, 9 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns for Calvin Ridley, for all you fantasy freaks out there. Behind them was Russell Gage, 9 receptions for 114 yards. Interesting name that you guys should keep an eye on. Russell Gage. I'm going to keep an eye on that. So, the Seattle Seahawks basically led the entire game, so that does it for that one. Let's go on to the next game here. I've got all the games all set here, ready to go. It's just all about if my computer loads it fast enough. All right. The next game we got here is the Baltimore Ravens took on the Cleveland Browns, and right away, Baker Mayfield, first play of the game, interception. Oh boy, you knew right away where this was going with Cleveland. So final score, 38-6 for the Ravens, the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year over the Cleveland Browns. Check this out. Lamar Jackson went 20 for 25 in completion attempts for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Robert Griffin actually came into the game for 1 play, had one completion attempt for 9 yards. So that was Robert Griffin's still kicking around. It's good to see that he still has a job. For rushing yards, Mark Ingram had 10 receptions for 29 yards, or 10 carries for 29 yards. My apologies. J.K. Dobbins, the new kid that just came in, he had 7 carries for 22 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he basically stole the touchdowns away from Mark Ingram. Well, the running game wasn't really a factor for the Ravens in this one. It was all about the receiving. Marquise Brown, 5 receptions for 101 yards. Willie Snead, 4 receptions for 64 yards and 1 touchdown. Mark Andrews, never heard of this kid, 5 receptions, 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. All the fantasy freaks out there, look up Mark Andrews for the Baltimore Ravens and keep him on your watch list. That basically covers it. Where Baltimore just outplayed the Browns, basically. I can't really say much else about it. We'll have to see where Cleveland goes from here if they're going to rebound back. Speaking of rebounding back, then we go to my other team here. The New York Jets took on the Buffalo Bills. Wasn't even a game, I don't think. Fucking Bills just destroyed the Jets in this game. Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills, 33 for 46 in completion attempts for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. Check this out. Josh Allen, the running back, he led in rushing yards for the team. 14 carries for Josh Allen, the quarterback, for 57 yards and a rushing touchdown. That's when you know it's going to be a different thing for the Buffalo Bills if Josh Allen is running the ball more than passing. Then we go to the receiving yards. Stephon Diggs, the new kid that's for the Buffalo Bills, 8 receptions for 86 yards, so he didn't get a touchdown. John Brown actually got the touchdown. 6 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown for John Brown, former Arizona Cardinal himself. Followed by him was Cole Beasley, former Dallas Cowboy, 4 receptions for 58 yards on his end. Then you got they threw the ball all over the place. Devin Singletary had 5 receptions for 23 yards. Isaiah McKenzie, 3 receptions for 17. Gabriel Davis, 2 receptions for 16. Zach Moss is the new running back, I believe. 3 receptions for 16 yards and a touchdown. They were throwing the ball all over the place. Then let's go over to the Jets side. Sam Darnold had a completion attempt for 21 for 35, 215 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. The rushing yards, Frank Gore and Le'Veon Bell actually tied in carries, 6 carries each. Now, important note, Le'Veon Bell left the game in the third quarter with a hamstring injury, and there is still no word yet about how serious this injury is. So that is definitely news to keep an eye on, everybody. I will keep that up to date. So not many yards. Frank Gore had 6 carries for 24. It's like that's not much of a factor. Le'Veon Bell 6 carries for 14. Man, then he got hurt. That did not help. Jamison Crowder had a beautiful play from Sam Darnold. Jamison Crowder led the he's a former Washington player, Washington football team, I guess we call it now. Jamison Crowder, 7 receptions for 115 yards, 1 touchdown. So Jamison Crowder seems to be the guy that they're probably going to go to. They got Brashad Perryman and Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan, I believe, came from New England. Brashad Perryman, he's been kicking around for a bit. I think he's been with Baltimore. He's been with the Vikings. So they've got a couple of names. But here's one that I've never heard of. Chris Herndon, 6 receptions for 37 yards. I've never heard of him, so they might be going to him a lot. Anyways, I got to stop talking about the Jets because they fucking suck today. All right, let's go on. Now, this one was a game I was very intrigued by. The Las Vegas Raiders took on the Carolina Panthers, and the Raiders came out victorious with a 34-30 victory. Very close game right to the end. Let's go to the stats for the Raiders here. Derek Carr, 22 for 30 in completion attempts for 239 yards, 1 touchdown. Check this out though. Josh Jacobs was amazing. He's the running back for Las Vegas Raiders. He had 25 carries, 93 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. He was on fire today. You guys got to go check out this Josh Jacobs, kids, and pick him up if you guys can. If he's a free agent or something like that, maybe make a trade for him or something like that. This guy had a hot hand going into this game. Then we go to the receiving end. Henry Ruggs III. He's one of the rookies, I believe. He got injured, so he only got 3 receptions for 55 yards, but he's going to be a difference maker. Josh Jacobs had 4 receptions for 46 yards, so he didn't just have 93 yards. He also had 46 yards in passing yards. So keep an eye out for that Josh Jacobs kid. Let's go over the Panthers side. Teddy Bridgewater went 22 for 34 in completion attempts for 270 yards and 1 touchdown. Then we go to the running backs. Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in fantasy football. Probably went number 1 in all drafts. He had 23 carries for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's a normal day for Chris McCaffrey, having at least 2 TDs. We go to the receiving end of that. Robbie Anderson led for the Carolina Panthers when it comes to receiving yards. Former New York Jet, Robbie Anderson. That's how I know him. 6 receptions for 115 yards and 1 touchdown. So Teddy Bridgewater and Robbie Anderson got a little connection going there. So keep an eye out. If you guys want a little sleeper, picking up for a flex or something like that, Robbie Anderson could be a go-to guy for Teddy Bridgewater. Behind him was DJ Moore. DJ Moore's been struggling. I think for the Panthers, he drops quite a few passes. 4 receptions for 54 yards for him. All right, let's move on to the next game. Final score once again, 34-30 for the Las Vegas Raiders over the Carolina Panthers. All right, then we go to the Chicago Bears taking on the Detroit Lions. This one, I got to say, like, Chicago Bears offense, they looked bad in this game. They were losing the entire game. They only had 6 points. They didn't even score a touchdown or anything like that till the fourth quarter. Detroit led this entire league, this entire game until the fourth quarter. Chicago scored 21 points to win the game, 27-23. This was more of a collapse by Detroit than it was for a win for Chicago. But let's take a look at the stats here. Mitchell Trubisky went 20 for 36 and completion attempts for 242 yards, 3 touchdowns for him. Rushing yards. David Montgomery led the Chicago Bears in rushing yards, 13 carries for 64 yards. Tariq Cohen had 7 carries for 41 yards. Tariq Cohen, I've got him on my fantasy team. If he's only going to get 7 carries for 41, I got to pick up somebody better than that. Receiving, Anthony Miller had 4 receptions for 76 yards and 1 touchdown for the Chicago Bears. Allen Robinson was behind him, 5 receptions for 74 yards. Jimmy Graham, former New Orleans Saints, still kicking around. He had 3 receptions for 25 yards and 1 touchdown. Javon Wims had 1 reception for 1 yard and 1 touchdown. All right, so it was probably just at the 1 yard line or something like that. You got the pass. just a stat like that. Oh, that's going like perfect. All right, let's check out the Lions side. Matthew Stafford, 24 for 42 in completion attempts, 297 yards for 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Rushing yards. Adrian Peterson led the team in rushing yards for 14 carries and 93 yards. Matthew Stafford was second behind him with 5 carries for 23 yards. Kerryon Johnson, 7 carries for 14 yards. Ooh, that is not good. I know my buddy Oob had him on his team. My apologies, Oob. Kerryon Johnson did not have a good game. 7 carries for 14 yards. That's averaging 2 yards a carry. You got to do better than that. DeAndre Swift, the new kid actually for the Lions, had 3 carries for 8 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift also dropped a big touchdown in the. Actually, I think it was an offensive interference call. The Lions could have won the game, and then there was something happened there. Where, I think he dropped the ball. It was one of the two. It was offensive pass interference where he dropped the ball, but DeAndre Swift, I know he was to blame for that one. Receiving yards for the Lions. Danny Amendola, 5 receptions for 81 yards. T.J. Hawkinson, the new tight end, had 5 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown, and I had him on the bench. Whoops. Well, I am going to make him on the trade block. See if anybody wants to pick him up. Anyways, the final score for the Chicago Bears, 27-23 over the Detroit Lions. Let's move on to the next game. I know this mini cast is going to be way longer than the normal mini cast because I try and keep it between like 15 minutes long. But when it comes to game day, I want to try and give you guys details about who played good and everything like that, who to look for, the names for just the main names to look forward to when it comes to the offensive things. All right. The Indianapolis Colts took on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and surprisingly, the Jaguars beat the Colts 27-20. This was unexpected. I did not expect the Jaguars to beat the Colts. Philip Rivers, I don't know what happened to him. We'll find out. But Gardner Minshew for the Jaguars went 19 for 20 in completion attempts, almost perfect when it comes to passing rate, for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's pretty impressive for Gardner Minshew. Minshew mania, still going wild in Jacksonville there. Rushing yards, James Robinson. That's the guy that's carrying on for Leonard Fournette, I guess. He had 16 carries for 62 yards. Behind him was Laviska Shenault Jr., 2 carries for 10 yards. So James Robinson seems to be the main carrier for Jacksonville. If anybody wants to pick up a sleeper when it comes to fantasy football. Might as well check him out. Jaguars receiving core, Keelan Cole had 5 receptions for 47 yards and 1 touchdown. Laviska Shenault Jr., that is the backup running back. He had 5 receptions for 37 yards and 1 touchdown. So it looks like he's the receiving running back. So you guys might want to keep an eye on Laviska Shenault Jr. as well as the backup for Jacksonville. DJ Chark had 3 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown himself. So that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's check out what happened here with the Colts. Phil Rivers went 36 for 46 in completion attempts, 363 yards. It's pretty damn good. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. There you go. 2 interceptions. It's not going to get it done, Philip Rivers. If you're going to make those mistakes, that's probably why. Let's check out the rushing core. Nyland Hines. Okay, so some very important news to know about Indianapolis Colts. They're very scared that Marlon Mack has suffered a torn ACL, so he's going to be done for the season. Their star, their running back, gone. So now this Nyheim Hines has to pick up the backup here. He had 7 carries for 28 yards and 1 touchdown. But this is the guy, Jonathan Taylor. This is the guy that he's going to be taking over the number 1 role. He had 9 carries for 22 yards, so he could do better. So that's the unfortunate news when it comes to Marlon Mack. It looks like he's going to be done for the season. Receiving core for the Colts. Paris Campbell had 6 receptions for 71 yards. Jonathan Taylor, the running back I just mentioned, 6 receptions for 67 yards. T.Y. Hilton, one of the wide receivers there, 4 receptions for 53. Jack Doyle, the tight end, had 3 receptions for 49. Nyheim Hines, the running back, 8 receptions for 45 yards and a touchdown. So Hines looks like to me that he played really well. Keep him on your watch list. Maybe I would get him as on the bench and try and use those trade bait right away. Yeah, that's what happened with the Colts today. They just couldn't succeed against the Jaguars. Final score 27-20 for the Jaguars over the Colts. Let's keep moving on. I think we've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got about 7 games to go through. Don't worry, guys. I'm almost done here. Okay, this one's gonna be pretty quick. The Green Bay Packers just totally mopped over the Minnesota Vikings. It was a really high-scoring game. Final score 43-34 for the Packers over the Vikings. Let's check out Aaron Rodgers here. 32 for 44 in completion attempt rate for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers still got the magic. For rushing yards, Aaron Jones had 16 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. Jamal Williams had 7 carries for 21 yards. Let's go down the receiving core. Davante Adams had 14 receptions, 156 yards for 2 touchdowns. Davante Adams. Oh, he's going to get a high number of volume when it comes to Randall Cobb's not there anymore, so Davante Adams is going to get a lot. Marquise Valdes-Scantling had 4 receptions for 96 yards and 1 touchdown. Very, very interesting. Very intriguing. That's JP from the Cole Bone Show. He did mention what you got to look out for this kid, so he was right about this kid. Alan Lazard had 4 receptions for 63 yards and 1 touchdown himself. So that was the Packers. Let's check out what happened with the Vikings. Kirk Cousins went 19 for 25 in completion attempts for 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. For the rushing end, Dalvin Cook had 12 carries for 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's my boy. I've got Dalvin Cook on my fantasy team. Go get me some. Receiving core, Adam Thielen, 6 receptions for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. Byside Johnson had 3 receptions for 56 yards. Alexander Madison had 4 receptions for 30. Kyle Rudolph, the tight end, had 2 receptions for 28. All right, so that's final score once again, 43-34, the Packers over the Vikings. We're now going into the afternoon games, I believe. Oh, we still got one more early game that we did. Of course, the Patriots and the Dolphins. We got to talk about Cam Newton looking good in the new uniform. He looks great on the team. They apparently there was a little scuffle after the game, but apparently they downplayed it a little bit. So Cam Newton went 15 for 19 in completion attempts for 155 yards. No touchdowns for Cam Newton, although he had two running touchdowns for himself. 15 carries, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Cam Newton, 15 carries. He did it by himself there. Behind him for rushing yards was Sony Michel, 10 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown himself. Rex Burkhead had 7 carries for 32 yards. Then we go down to the receiving corps for the Patriots. Julian Edelman, 5 receptions for 57 yards. N'Keal Harry had 5 receptions for 39. James White had 3 for 30. Let's go over to the Dolphins side and see how Fitzmagic did. Ryan Fitzpatrick went 20 for 30 in completion attempts for 191 yards. 3 interceptions. Oh, brutal. Jesus. Fitzmagic was not on his game today. For rushing yards, the leading carrier was Myles Gaskin for 9 carries for 40 yards. That's brutal. Followed behind him was Matt Breida, 5 carries for 22. Jordan Howard had 8 carries for 7 with 1 touchdown. Oh, just terrible. Just terrible for running. Receiving yards, Devontae Parker had 4 receptions for 47. Preston Williams went 2 receptions for 41. And then everybody else was pretty quiet. So, final score, Patriots beating the Dolphins 21-11. Now I believe we're going into the afternoon games. No, I'm wrong 2 times in a row. I'm doing a good job here, guys. I'm trying to give you guys all the stats here for each team, making sure you guys know about the players and everything like that. The Washington football team took on the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm surprised about this one. Washington came out victorious, 27-17. Philadelphia, what a letdown. They did not look good, in my opinion. Carson Wentz, a couple of interceptions today. Oh, let's go through the stats, shall we? For the Washington football team, Dwayne Haskins went 17 for 31 in completion attempts, 178 yards, 1 touchdown. So Dwayne Haskins really didn't have that good of a game. The leading rusher for Washington was Antonio Gibson. Had 9 carries for 36 yards, but Peyton Barber actually led the carries. 17 for 29 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not very good at all when it comes to carry yards. He did get the 2 touchdowns though. Dwayne Haskins actually carried the ball 7 times himself for 17 yards. For receiving yards, Terry McLaurin, 5 receptions for 61 yards. Steve Sims had 3 receptions for 50. Logan Thomas had 4 receptions for 37 yards and a touchdown. Then for the Eagles side, let's go over to the Eagles side. Carson Wentz went 24 for 42 in completions for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Yeah, those interceptions really hurt him today. For rushing yards, Boston Scott was the leading rusher for Philadelphia with 9 carries for 35 yards. Corey Clement was behind him with 6 carries for 19 yards. For the receiving corps, the leading receiver was Dallas Goedert with 8 receptions for 101 yards and 1 touchdown. Dallas Goedert, I've never heard of him. I might have to check him out. Jalen Reagor, 1 reception for, holy crap, this one guy had 1 reception for 55 yards. had a breakout, but he was targeted 4 times. Deshaun Jackson, he was targeted twice for 46 yards. Greg Ward, 5 receptions for 31. Zach Ertz, the tight end, went 3 receptions for 18 yards and a touchdown. All right, so once again, the final score, 27 to 17 for the Washington football team over the Philadelphia Eagles. Very surprising win. All right, now we go into the afternoon games. This first one, the Cincinnati Bengals took on the Los Angeles Chargers. It came down to a kick, and the Cincinnati Bengals kicker pulled a hamstring and hurt himself when he kicked. So it costed the Bengals a tie. If they would have gotten this field goal, then they would have tied and went to overtime. So the Chargers sneak away with a win almost. Let's check out the stats. Tyrod for the Chargers, Tyrod Taylor went 16 for 30 for 208 yards. No touchdowns, but no interceptions. For the rushing corps, Austin Eckler led the team in carries, 19 carries for 84 yards. Joshua Kelly, he was behind Austin Eckler with 12 carries for 60 yards and 1 touchdown. Very interesting. Never heard of him. For receiving corps, Hunter Henry led the receiving with 5 receptions for 73 yards. Mike Williams was behind him with 4 receptions for 69. Keenan Allen had 4 receptions for 37 yards. And that's about it. Pretty. Everybody else was pretty quiet. Let's check out the Bengals side. Joe Burrow, the number 1 pick in this year's draft, he looked good in my opinion. He had a nice play where he made a deke at the beginning of the game. Joe Burrow went 23 for 36 in completion attempts, 193 yards and 1 interception. All right, but he did have a rushing touchdown. He actually carried the ball 8 times, 46 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Leading rusher was Joe Mixon, had 19 carries for 69 yards. So Joe Mixon's getting the ball quite a lot. He's just got to produce more. For the receiving corps for the Bengals, A.J. Green had 5 receptions for 51 yards. C.J. Uzomah had 4 receptions for 4. That's a cool last name. Uzomah. 4 receptions for 45. Tyler Boyd had 4 receptions for 33. That's not very good. He's on my team, and I got to do something about that. All right, so the final score, the Los Angeles Chargers beating the Cincinnati Bengals 16 to 13 was the final score. Then we come to the game of the week. Everybody was thinking this was the game of the week. The New Orleans Saints versus Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans, all these big names in Tampa Bay, and they lose. Losers. New Orleans Saints mopped them. 34 to 23 was the final score in Tom Brady's debut in the Bucs uniform. Let's check out the stats for the Saints. Drew Brees went 18 for 30, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is not normal of a day for Drew Brees. So the defense did do their part in spurts today against Drew Brees, but it was the rushing. It was the rushing game that really was an impact. Alvin Kamara, 12 carries for 16 yards and 1 touchdown. He was averaging 1.3 yard a carry. Latavius Murray was behind him with 15 carries for 48 yards. Wow. So I guess my mistake. I guess the rushing was not a factor. Maybe it was the receiving corps. Let's check out the receiving corps. Jared Cook is the tight end, had 5 receptions for 80 yards. Alvin Kamara, he had 5 receptions for 51 yards and 1 touchdown. So he didn't do good with the rushing, but he did fine with the receiving. Michael Thomas only went 3 receptions for 17. He was shut down. Emmanuel Sanders had 3 receptions for 15 yards and a touchdown. I did not know Emmanuel Sanders is now playing for the Saints. I have to check that out. Let's check out the Bucs side. Tom Brady, 23 for 36 in completion attempts for 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. That is not good, Tom Brady. People were saying that I got some people that were chatting with me in my chat saying, "Look at that! It looks like Tom Brady is getting paid $36 million or whatever the hell he's getting paid for being a 6th-round, 43-year-old quarterback." And he sure looked like it today. 2 interceptions. For rushing yards, Ronald Jones for the Bucs had 17 carries for 66 yards. Leonard Fournette only had 5 carries for 5 yards, so he was a non-factor. Receiving, Chris Godwin had 6 receptions for 79 yards. Scott Miller, I don't even know who the hell Scott Miller is, 5 receptions for 73. O.J. Howard, this is the guy I don't like. I don't like this O.J. Howard tight end. He dropped a couple of balls. 4 receptions for 36 yards and a touchdown for him. Leonard Fournette had 1 reception for 14. Rob Gronkowski was very quiet with only 2 receptions for 11 yards. Everybody else is pretty quiet. Mike Evans had 1 reception for 2 yards and a touchdown. But he was been dealing with like a hamstring injury most of the time. So there you have it. The Saints beating the Bucs, 34-23, your final score. Then we go the surprising game of the week, in my opinion. The Arizona Cardinals took on the San Francisco 49ers. And it wasn't that good of a game, in my opinion, because it was a little slow-paced. There wasn't too much offense. But the Cardinals surprising the NFC Championship, the NFC champions last year, with a win, 24-20 over the San Francisco 49ers. Let's check out what the Cardinals did. Kyler Murray, who I think might be a breakout this year, 26 for 40 in completion attempts for 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He actually led his team in rushing yards as well for 13 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. He's a great scrambler. Followed behind him was his actual running back, Kenyon Drake, with 16 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown himself. Chase Edmonds was close behind that with 6 carries for 26 yards. Then we go to the receiving core. DeAndre Hopkins, the brand new toy that they got in from Houston Texans. He did his job today. 14 receptions for 151 yards. That is how you make an impact on your team. Larry Fitzgerald was behind him with 4 receptions for 34 yards. Chase Edmonds had 3 receptions for 19 with 1 touchdown. So yeah, that's a very impressive day for the Arizona Cardinals. Let's check out what the 49ers did. Jimmy Garoppolo had 19 for 33 in completion attempts, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns for Jimmy Garoppolo. For the rushing leader, it was Raheem Mostert with 15 carries for 56 yards. Jerick McKinnon, after coming back into the league after being gone 2 years, making his comeback. Jerick McKinnon, 3 carries for 24 yards. Devin Coleman had 4 carries for 18. Then we go to the receiving core. Raheem Mostert actually had 4 receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. Beast mode for Mostert. He actually is continuing from his last year. George Kittle, the tight end, had 4 receptions for 44. Very quiet game for him. One of the best tight ends. He was shut down, basically. And Jerick McKinnon had 3 receptions for 20 yards and a touchdown. And there you go. The final score, Arizona Cardinals beating the San Francisco 49ers 24-20. We are almost done here. The final game that just got done here tonight. The Los Angeles Rams took on the Dallas Cowboys, and surprisingly, the Rams come out victorious at the end. 20-17 was the final score in that game. Let's check out what Jared Goff had. 20 for 31 in completion attempts for 275 yards. No touchdowns for Jared Goff and 1 interception. The rushing yards, Malcolm Brown actually led the rushing yards for 18 carries for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 4.4 yards a carry. Cam Akers came behind him with 14 carries for 39 yards. And then we go over to the receiving core. Robert Woods led the Rams when it comes to receiving, 6 yards for 105 yards. Behind him was Cooper Kupp, 4 receptions for 40. Tyler Higbee, the tight end, had 3 receptions for 40. And everybody else was pretty quiet. Let's check out the Cowboys here. I'm starting to lose my voice, everybody, so you know that I've been rushing through this as fast as possible. Dak Prescott for the Cowboys went 25 for 39 completion attempts, 266 yards, and 1 touchdown. For the rushing yards, Ezekiel Elliott had 22 carries, 96 yards, and 1 touchdown. Dak Prescott actually had 3 carries for 30 yards himself as well. The receiving core, Amari Cooper led the receiving with 10 receptions for 81 yards. Jalen Ramsey couldn't shut him fully down. CeeDee Lamb, the new kid on the block, 5 receptions for 59 yards. Michael Gallup had 3 receptions for 50, but could have had way more at the end. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Ezekiel Elliott had 3 receptions for 31 and a touchdown himself. And there you have it, everybody. The Rams beating the Cowboys 20-17. And then there's 2 games that are actually happening today on Monday, September 14th. It's going to be the Giants. I can't remember who they're taking on. I know one of the games is the Titans are taking on the Denver Broncos. That's going to be happening. I'm going to be taking the Titans in that game. It's the Steelers. The Steelers are taking on the Giants. Well, I'm taking the Steelers in that one. Those are the 2 games coming up on Monday, September 14th. Let's get a little bit of a look at the standings here. I'm just going to quickly look over the standings. I know it's the beginning of the year, but you might as well just take a look. All right, so in the NFC West, the Cardinals are actually leading on top with 1 win. Seahawks are below them with 1 win, and the Rams also have 1 win. So the one loser in that division right now is the 49ers. In the NFC South, the only team with a win is the Saints. All the Panthers, the Buccaneers, and the Falcons all have a loss. Rough start for them. All right, so in the NFC East, the Washington football team is actually leading the division with 1 win right now, while the Cowboys and Eagles sitting at the bottom with a loss each. NFC North, the Bears are actually in. It should be the Packers. Okay, the Packers should be in first place. And then the Bears both with a win. The Vikings and the Lions with a loss today, so they're at the bottom. Then we go to the AFC. The AFC North, the Ravens are leading the division with 1 win. Steelers have yet to play, so they have yet to rank. Bengals and Browns both have a loss, so they're sitting at the bottom there. AFC West, Chiefs have a win. Chargers have a win, so they're sitting on top. And the Raiders have a win. Very strong AFC West division, it looks like, this year. Broncos haven't played yet, so they're sitting at the bottom. We'll find out how they do against the Titans. In the AFC South, the Jaguars, surprisingly, are sitting up in first place in their division. Titans have yet to play, so we're waiting on them. Most likely, the Titans are probably going to win, in my opinion. So Titans are probably going to sit up top over the Jaguars. The Colts and Texans have a loss each, so they're sitting at the bottom. Finally, in the AFC East, the Patriots are sitting up top with a win. The Bills also have a win themselves, and the Jets and the Dolphins are sitting at the bottom with a loss each. So there you have it, everybody. Do I have any other news? I'll bring you some news probably on the next episode. I think I've already done enough or spoke enough for you guys on this episode. Hopefully you enjoy it, and thank you so much for joining the Sideline Study minicast, and enjoy the games from Monday Night Football. And thanks everybody for joining in, and make sure you go subscribe to the Coop Joe channel on YouTube to catch us for the Sideline Study. Go get some merch if you guys want to support the show, and take it easy, and hopefully you enjoyed week 1.